Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is indeed the melanated truth. Let the earth rejoice. Let the earth rejoice. For her children are waking up to the knowledge of the truth. Let the earth rejoice. First and foremost, we want to give thanks to the Creator. We want to give thanks to the Creator. He is amazing. He is amazing. He has made it possible for me and you to be alive, and we give thanks to Him. We give thanks to everybody around your household in these trying times. We give thanks to the Creator for ensuring that every single person in your household is safe. So far, I haven't heard the news of anybody around me, so I know you are safe as well. We bless the Creator also for our Mother, the earth, who is always supporting, sustaining, and protecting us. We thank the Almighty for the powers there be, the powers of the fire element, the powers of the water element, the powers of the air, the powers in the earth. We are most grateful. We thank the powers in the heavens. We are more grateful. And I'm grateful for the power behind you, the authority behind you, what you call the guardian angel, the power, the authority that protects you. Mine is an amazing one. He's the power of the air. He's the power of the air, and he's amazing. He's strong. He's mighty. I thank Him for all the powers there be. I thank the Creator for all the powers there be. He's given to our protection. And I want to give thanks to the Creator also for the life of our fathers who laid down their lives to ensure that you and I will be alive today. If they never sacrificed to ensure that they stay alive to give birth to your great-great-great-grandparent, you wouldn't be here. So we honor the life of our fathers. We honor the life of our mothers who gave their life to ensure that we also made it in this world. I'm also grateful to you that is constantly watching, and we are learning together. Okay, I'm not here. I want to say this. I'm not here to attack anybody. I'm only here that we study together. So I want to thank you. And I believe you subscribe by now. Please, if you haven't subscribed, please make sure you subscribe and you hit the notification button so that when I post a new video, you get notified. And also, please like and share. The target is to get over 1,000 views so that I can start coming live. Listen, I've got a lot of things locked down. There are a lot of things I want to do when I come live. So please help me tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend that the melanated people are up and ready to grasp the truth. And it's your responsibility not to get deceived. Yeah, it's your responsibility not to get deceived. If you get deceived, that is on you. That's not on anybody. It's strictly on you. So I welcome everybody. I hope you enjoyed today's teachings. And for those of you that have been asking me questions like, how about Isaiah 11, Isaiah 49, Isaiah 42, Isaiah 41? How about Isaiah 53 and Isaiah 9 and Isaiah 7 and all that? Listen, I'm going to come back to all of that. Remember, I promise you, I'm going to take my time to break it down. Break the whole thing down. Before we go into the New Testament, I want us to study around the New Testament. And all that I'm doing is just around. Listen, all the New Testament passages is just studying around. We haven't really delved into the thing, right? So we're going to do that very shortly. But I want to continue what I started yesterday. Yesterday, I was telling you from the book of Romans that, listen, it is insane to worship the creation than the Creator. If you want to get to anybody, get to the Creator. That's where a lot of people ask me questions like, but you are telling us to connect to our ancestors. You are telling us to connect to the spirit of our fathers. Today I heard a story about something that an ancestor did for an amazing family, and it will blow your mind. The stories will blow your mind. Listen, these things are real. Connecting to your ancestors is real. Connecting to the powers in your background. I know the power in my background. He's the power of the air. Don't try it. Don't try it. You understand? He's the power of the air. And I know that there's a power, there's a being, there's a force, there's an authority that the Creator has given to you. Every Bible character, especially the scriptures, every single one of them had a powerful being, what you call as angel. You understand? So please, you got to know these truths, and this is where we are going. But I had to bring everybody back so that we break down the New Testament. So that much said, let me go straight to my job for today. I want us to look at the evidence of the New Testament. We need to understand that there is no real evidence supporting the New Testament. There's no real evidence supporting the New Testament. And that said, no real evidence supporting the New Testament. You need to understand the New Testament, the things that is claimed to happen in the New Testament are some of the greatest things that ever happened on the face of this earth, according to the New Testament. So I'm thinking some of these things should be recorded, right? We should have physical evidence. There's no, all the major writers that existed in that era, no, none. The closest you can go to is Josephus. Josephus, and apart from Josephus, who else? And Josephus was writing for the emperor Caesar. You understand? So there's no real account apart from the Gospels. There's no real account of Jesus Christ apart from the Gospels. Think about the wave that Jesus made. I'm thinking there should be other books recording and testifying. And I know people who quote me in the book of Thomas and all of that. Listen, the Apocrypha and all of that. Listen. What blew up the story of Jesus is Matthew, Mark, Luke, John. So if there are no evidence, real evidence, every other book was built after this. So if there are no real evidence supporting these things, then it's a problem. Because at least somebody should have known or seen in history that something this exciting is going on. And nobody said anything about it. Right? The whole story of Jesus is that of God incarnate, right? The whole story of Jesus is believed that he was God and he came down to earth and he became man. Right? That's the whole story of that. And died. So the God became man and God died. That's the whole story of New Testament, right? So let's read some of them. John 1, like I said, I used the manual. So John 1, verses 1 to 3. John 1 verses 1 to 3 says what? In the beginning, the Word already existed. The Word was with God. And the Word was God. In the beginning, the Word already existed. The Word was with, and the Word was God. It simply means is that God, the Almighty, Yah, was the Word from the beginning. So no separation here. And God created everything through him, and nothing was created except through him. So the Word became God, but this same God created everything through him. So if I get it right, this God that was the Word created everything through himself. Other than that, then if you don't, you better be careful. And I mean, I'm talking about any pastor out there, New Testament person out there, any Christian person out there. It's not only Christians that listen to me. So in the beginning, the Word was with God, and the Word was God. So the Word was God, and God created everything through the Word. So it's either they are saying that God created everything through himself, when he was the Word, so his word that he spoke is himself, or the Word was separate and God created everything through him. Anyway, so this seems to be the idea of the New Testament Gospels, right? Okay, let's look at John 1:14, the same place. John 1. So the Word became human. So the Word, which is God, became new human and made his home amongst us. The Word became God, which is human, and this Word made his home amongst us. Interesting. Okay, this Word made his home amongst us. Interesting. Let me continue. It says, amongst us, he was full of unfailing love and faithfulness, and he was seen, and we have seen his glory, and the glory of the Father's one and only Son, the Father's one. You see, this Word became flesh and lived amongst us. So this same Word, this same God, became flesh and lived amongst us. But again, this same Word became the Father. Think about it. This same God that became flesh was the Word and became flesh and lived amongst us. But this same Word, God, that became flesh and lived amongst us, is the Son of the Father. Then who is the Father? Anyway, that's not the case. The case here is to prove that Jesus is an incarnate God, right? Okay. Let's go to Philippians 2. Philippians 2, 5-7. I'm not making any of this up. Check your scriptures. That's why I try as much as possible to use as many scriptures as I can, as many versions as I can. Philippians 2, 5. It says what? I read from 5-7. It says, instead, he gave up his divine privileges and he took the humble position of a slave and was born as a human being. So, this God was not a human being, but was born as a human being. As it means he was not a human being. Again, that's not the point I'm trying to say here. The point I'm showing you is that this God that existed became incarnate, right? Came to earth, became a human being. And what happened? Though he was God, so though he was God, because though he was God, though he was God, though he was himself, I don't know what your version says, but though he was God, okay, he did not think of equality with God. Though he was God, he did not think of equality with God as something to cling to. Instead, he gave up his divine privileges and he took the human position, or he took the position as a slave. So this God became a slave, right? All right, you know where that is going. Okay. Matthew 1. Matthew 1. We go to Matthew, the Gospel of Matthew 1, verses 23. It says, look, the virgin would conceive a child, she'll give birth to a son, and they will call him Emmanuel, which means God is with us. And behold, the virgin would conceive and give birth to a son, and they will call him Emmanuel, which means God is with us. So it means this virgin was not impregnated by any man, but impregnated by the Spirit. So the Spirit of God went to take somebody's wife, which is against the law that do not take anybody's wife. So this God went to take somebody's wife and impregnated the person's wife, and it was okay. Meanwhile, this same God, when David took somebody's wife, this same God made sure that David's son died as a punishment to taking somebody's wife. But yet again, this God goes to take somebody's wife and then impregnate somebody's wife with Jesus and not get punished. But when David did it, oh, wait a minute. David was human, the Spirit was spirit. David was human, the Spirit. Thou shalt not covet your neighbor's wife. So the Spirit can covet Mary, which is Joseph's wife, engaged. Some say engaged. Some say was betrothed, right? And that's a privilege. But when David does it, anyway, that's not the point. So all these are not the point. Let's continue. Let's continue. John 8:25. John 8:20. Today I'm trying to chill. John 8:25. So these are God incarnate scriptures, right? John 8:25. Let's read it. It says, "Who are you?" They demanded. Jesus replied, "The one I have always claimed to be." Who are you? Says, the one I have always claimed to be. Meaning, Jesus himself is claiming to be the divine being, Almighty. Says the one, that's my version. I don't know which version you're using. the one I've always been. I've always claimed to be. I am the one. I'm the same person. So Jesus himself claimed to come down, right? But here's the problem. Here's the problem. The Most High is not a man. This God that all these scriptures are referring to as God incarnate, if it's the same God that we're talking about, the same God of Israel that we're talking about, God of Jacob that we're talking about, then this God said, I am not man. Ooh, wait. This God says, I am not man? Then it means he can't possibly be man. Do you know what I'm saying? He can't possibly be man. You know why he can't possibly be man? Because he says what? I am not a man that should lie. So he cannot say I'm not a man, and not just that I'm not a man, but I cannot lie and turn around and go and be a man years later. That is pretty much lies to me. But if he's not a man and he cannot lie, it means that what? He cannot be a man. So all these titles of the Son of Man cannot apply to the God of Israel. So the God of Israel did not become a man because he said it himself, I'm not a man that I should lie. Numbers 23. Numbers 23. Let's go to Numbers 23, 19. God is not a man, so he does not lie. He is not human, so he does not change his mind. Woo. Meaning, he cannot say, I'm not a man, I'm not human, and all of a sudden, years later, come back and become a human. That is the problem. Then it means we are talking about two different gods. We've got the God of Israel, the God of Jacob, and permit me, I'm only using God for, permit me, I'm not Yah. Permit me, I'm only using God because of you. Those of you who know Yah, you are with me. But those who don't know Yah, and just say God and Lord and all of that, I'm saying God because of you fellows. But those who know, I'm with you. You know I'm with you. So he's not a man that or human that he should change. He cannot change. He's not a man. So when he says that I do not take human sacrifices, and therefore when you move to the land, you cannot sacrifice your children like the other nations do. Ooh, wait, did I say that? He cannot change his mind. So if he says he does not love human sacrifices, then he cannot have anything to do with the human sacrifice. If he should perform a human sacrifice, then he is a man and he is lying. Just as it's okay for David not to take somebody's wife and impregnate it, and for the punishment, the prophet Nathaniel had to come. The prophet had to come. And what? Tell him that you've committed an abomination, because the child is going to die and there's nothing you can do. So the child of David died because he took somebody's wife. But the child of Mary didn't die. The child of Mary, of course, not Joseph. Joseph is not the father. The child of Mary didn't die because that is a divine conception. Or maybe because the Holy Spirit didn't kill Joseph. So that's okay. Let's move away from that. He said, I hate human sacrifices. And if he does not lie, and if he won't lie, then wait a minute. Who is this God in the New Testament? Who is this God in the New? He cannot lie. Let's go to, this is Numbers 23, 19. Let's go to 1 Samuel 15, 29. 1 Samuel 15, 29. 1 Samuel 15, 29. He says what? 29 says, let's read it. 29 says, And he who is the glory of Israel, he who is the glory of Israel would not lie. Woo. Wait, so it means that if the God in the New Testament became man, then he cannot be the God of Israel. Because if the God of Israel was the same God of the New Testament, then he just lied. But wait, he cannot lie. So he's not a God of the New Testament. Ooh. This hot, this hot, this hot, this hot. This hot, this hot. It's really hot. Nor would he change his mind, for he is not human, that he should change his mind. He's not a man. He is. Psalm 89. Psalm 89. Psalm 89. Let's go to Psalm 89. Psalm 89. Psalm 89, 35. Psalm 89, 35. It says what? Psalm 89, 35 says, I have sworn an oath to David in my holiness. Whoo! I cannot lie. So he went to a deal with David. He says, I cannot lie. So this God will not tell David not to take somebody's wife and come and impregnate somebody's wife. If he does that, he's a liar. And if you want to believe that the God of Israel is a liar, I'm not the one saying that. But that's what I believe. The God of Israel does not lie. As a matter of fact, gods do not lie. Take it from me. So if they say one thing, no matter how long it takes, they will not come around. The God of Israel will not come around and lie. So this whole thing about the Logos, and the Word became flesh, the Logos, the Word became flesh. Where did this idea come from? Did this idea originate out of Christianity, or it was already there? How many of you know the writer Philo, who lived around the BC 20s to AD 50? Philo. How many of you know Philo, and how many of you know his works? I'll read something small for you. I'll read something small. Because this Logos idea, this Logos theory, let's see where it's really coming from. Philo of Judah was a Jewish man living around the same time as the story of Jesus, which is 20 BC to 50 AD. So about 70 years, right? He was part of the wealthiest families on the planet at the time. He wrote loads of books that would make a huge collection in our time. He even attempted harmonizing Greek and Jewish philosophy. His books were distributed across the regions because of his wealthy family. In his book, he talks about the incarnate word, the Logos. This idea was developed significantly by the Greeks into the living word of God in John 1:1. Philo describes what the word ends up in the New Testament to the letter. So in Philo's book, so when Philo was describing the Logos in his book, right, Philo described what this word Logos, the Logos, meant to him, and what his understanding about a living word, the Logos, meant to Philo, right? The incarnate word. So this was Philo's work. And Philo's work, Philo was about, 50 AD. So these books were written earlier, right? So Philo's book was out around the 20 ADs. This book in particular was out around the 20 ADs, which probably means that Jesus would be in his 20s, early 20s, right? So it means Jesus had not yet been announced to the people of Galilee. He was still going about the business that he was doing. So there was no way Philo could have known in his vision that there's a Logos word that is coming. So Philo wrote this. Philo, the logos of the living God, is the bound of everything, holding all things together. The logos of the living God is the bound of everything, holding all things together. That's Philo. Let's go to Colossians 1:17. You know what I just said about Philo's book, which is released around AD 20. Let's go to Colossians 1 verses 17. Colossians 1 verses 17 says, he existed before anything. Remember, this is Philo's way. The logos of the living God is the bound of everything, holding all things together. And Colossians 1:17 says what? He existed before anything else and holds all creation together. So this is Paul's letter to the Colossians. And what is amazing is that Paul went to quote from Philo's book. And as a matter of fact, Philo wrote with no idea that such a thing as the word incarnate was in the process of manifesting. Never heard anything anywhere that a Messiah is born. He's soon to be manifested. A Messiah is born and he's soon to be manifested as the Logos. He published his work probably in the mid-20s of Jesus, which by this time nobody has heard of him, not a single mention of him by anybody. A lot of Philo's writing made it to the New Testament, like what I just read to you. Philo's word about the living God is the bond which hold everything together, and 1 Colossians 1:17. Also, you can read about Philo's book, okay? So, he published this work probably in the mid-20s of Jesus, by which time nobody has heard of him, not a single mention of him by anybody. A lot of Philo's writing made it to the New Testament, which some were even verbatim. This should make you pause and wonder, right? This should make you think that, wait, if Philo is writing his works and his works are found in the New Testament, how is this possible? Like I gave you John 1:1, that was Philo's word before it became John 1:1. Like 1 Colossians 17, that was Philo's word before it became 1 Colossians 17, right? So there are other problems that has no records at all, like there's no evidence for them at all. One of the other problems of the story is that of the ascension. Is that of the ascension. What about the ascension? Okay. Maybe some of you have not paid attention to what happened. But I'm telling you, there's not a single person or a writer in the world today that won't hear about coronavirus. You see how the coronavirus has broken through the boundaries of every country? That is how the fame of Jesus spread across the oceans, according to the New Testament. So you mean to tell me, as these people that are dying, these people that are losing their lives, that the world is basically on lockdown, 100 years to come, nobody will have this story or know this story, or 2,000 years to come. Nobody would know. There will be no records at all that say coronavirus existed. Well, in the same era, a lot of books existed. As a matter of fact, that era is considered the best writing era in human history. Yet, none of these writers wrote about anything as epic as a coronavirus. I'm not saying Jesus is a coronavirus, but I'm just comparing the two scenarios. That something as big as the coronavirus, nobody recorded that in history, or nobody records that in our history, so that centuries to come, somebody would know that something like that happened. How is that possible? If stories way back in ancient Egypt are still there, if physical evidence of Egypt is still there, and Egypt is somehow about what, 3,000, 4,000 years ago? So how come, or 5,000 years ago? So how come there's no record, no physical evidence at all about all the signs, all the miracles, all the things that Jesus did. No physical evidence. Most of them that they show on TV are all made up. No physical evidence. Something not tangible. Nothing. No statute built in his name. No statute. No, nobody built a thing. At least I want to believe that the lepers, some of these people that he healed, at least one person will build a statue in his honor. None. No physical evidence. Especially with what I'm about to read. That's why I mentioned the coronavirus, because what I'm about to read is as big as the coronavirus. Right? What I'm about to read is as big as the coronavirus. Because remember the invasion of the Greeks on Egypt? It's recorded. When the Romans came, it's recorded. When the Arabs came, it's recorded. But yet something as epic as what I'm about to read, no records, nothing, nobody records of this. Let's read it. Let's read it. Matthew 27. Matthew 27. By the time I'm done with the New Testament, you chase after spirituality. You will run. You will run. Those of you who are already on the way, please help me. Those of you who know these truths, help me spread the truth, okay? Those who don't know, those who are still Christians, you would run and pursue the truth, pursue spirituality, and throw away religion. Because religion is what is destroying us. Matthew. This is so epic. Matthew 27. Matthew 27. Right? Let's read it. Matthew 27 verses 55. Listen to this carefully. Listen. Matthew 27, 55. I read from 51 to 55. It says, then Jesus shouted out again and released his spirit. At that moment, the curtain in the sanctuary of the temple were torn in two from top to bottom. These temples were huge. And like the curtain, this is a temple that everybody went to pray. The Jews went to pray in the temple. And something this huge tears into two, and no single Jew lived to tell the story. No single Jew write a story about the curtain in their tent splitting into two. Nobody, no single person. Maybe that's not big enough. Okay, maybe it's just a curtain. Maybe it's just a curtain. But something as significant as the Jewish temple, that people across the whole region came to worship and pray, right? And pay tithes and all of that. Nobody put down anything of records that shows that the curtains was torn, apart from the Gospels. These are the holy places. Okay, fair. And even not all the Gospels. Fair. Maybe that's not enough. Let's go on. From top to bottom, the earth shook. There was an earthquake. Yet there's not a single record. I remember Hurricane Katrina to date. Movies were made out of Hurricane Katrina. I'm not saying movies should be made out of the earthquaking. I'm saying because probably they wouldn't have the equipment we have today, right? But I'm saying something should have been said. An evidence of, to date, I believe, if you go to Louisiana, right, you'll find evidences of Katrina, right? But up to date, there's not a single evidence of the earthquaking at this time. The rocks split apart. The rocks. Listen, if maybe when the earthquake, the earth has come back. Maybe when the earth quaked, the earth that quaked came back and joined together. Now it says what? The rocks split apart. The rocks are not going anywhere. The rocks at Egypt are still there. So if there are rocks that split apart in ancient Rome, mind you, Rome had documents. And you can't tell me Rome was hiding it. No, Rome is the one that has propagated the Gospels. So something miraculous as the rock splitting would easily push their story and let the whole world believe their story with no doubt. But yet this same Rome could not record the document of the temples curtains splitting apart. Rome has no document about the earth quaking. Rome has no, they didn't even preserve the rocks that split it into two. This is something huge, and nobody has records of it. None. Not a single person. I can list you writers, right? You can Google them. What do you call it? Apollonius, or Perseus Appian, or Petrinius, Arian, or Phaedrus Gnecio, or Philo Judaeus, or Culum Mela, or Phrygon Damis, or Pliny the Elder, Dio. Listen, the list goes on. None of these writers, great writers, wrote anything about the earth quaking, about a rock splitting. Read the next one. It says, and tombs open. So all of a sudden, there was the walk of the dead. Thriller happened, and no, or maybe the evidence is thriller. This is ridiculous. Listen, the tombs open. The bodies of many godly men, the bodies of many godly men and women who had died were raised from the dead. So the tombs opened first, but there were people, there were angels at the tomb making sure the ungodly didn't wake up. But only the godly that died, were awake. Such an epic zombie nation. The entire city was filled with zombies. No, this are actually resurrected, right? Not necessarily zombies. So all those that came to life, they went to visit their families. Yet not a single story said by anybody. Is that not strange? If just one tomb should open today, and the person, I still know the story of Okonfanoche. I still know the story of Yasantua. I still know the story. Nobody told any story about a rock splitting. I mean, we cry. Nobody. Asebua Memphis. Listen, Asebua Memphis is one of the giants that lived in Cape Coast areas. And up to date, when you go to Cape Coast, you will see his footprints in the rocks. Up to date. Evidence of Asebu and Memphis, the giants walking, is still there till date. And not a single story, not a single shred of evidence came out after the rock split it. Not a single shred of evidence came out after the rock split it. Not one. One. Okay, how about the dead coming to life? Maybe the dead didn't make an announcement that they were waking, right? The bodies of many godly men who had died were raised from the dead. They left cemetery after Jesus' resurrection and went into the holy city of Jerusalem and appeared to many. What? These dead godly men woke up after Jesus was. So Jesus did not wake up alone. He woke up with a whole host of people. And all these people that he woke up went to manifest themselves to the people at the time. And yet not a single, just one book written about this epic moment. Seeing your dead grandmother come alive. What? Not a single evidence. Nobody said anything about the dead coming to the city. No book, nothing. Nothing was written about this. Not a thing. Let me ask a question, right? Let me ask a question. If God, let's back it up. If God is indeed the one who sent Jesus to sacrifice, if God is indeed the one who sent Jesus to sacrifice, right? So Jesus became the sacrificial lamb, which is even funny, but I'll touch on it tomorrow. Sacrificial lamb. You talk about atonement. Jesus became the atonement and he was a lamb. Since when did they use a lamb for the atonement of sins for the nation? I'll touch on that tomorrow. But let me say, if God gave Jesus his only son as a sacrifice to die for you and me and you, our sins, right? He gave Jesus as a sacrifice to die for me and you, our sins. So something that is sacrificial means you give it out. For God so loved the world that he gave his begotten son, that whosoever believes. So he died. He gave him to die as a sacrifice, right? But yet, after the show on the cross, and after he made a show of him as dead, right? He went behind and went to resurrect his son. Say, I've taken my son away. How is that a sacrifice? Think about it. How is that a sacrifice? If I'm sacrificing money for you, right? If I say, this is money, not much, 5 high cities. So if I say, this is my last money that I have, right? So I'm giving you this money. If I say I'm giving you this money on you, right? Take it. This is my sacrifice for you. I'm supporting what you do. Take it. 5 high cities is not much. I'm supporting you. Take this money, right? Then I come behind you and I send armed robbers to take the money from you. How is that a sacrifice? How are you sacrificing a thing that you know, at the end of the day, you go behind the scene and resurrect the sacrifice? How is that a sacrifice? He should have just said, you know what, it's not a sacrifice. I'm going to send my son to die and resurrect. And in his resurrection, you would have life. But he said, by his sacrifice, you are saved. But yet, he resurrected the sacrifice for himself and brought him and gave him position. How is this a sacrifice? How can I give you money and say this is my sacrifice and pass behind and steal the same money from you and demand that if you don't believe and if you don't use the money that I've given you for an investment to make sure your life becomes successful, I'll cut you off. Meanwhile, I am the one that has gone behind to steal it. Who would make that deal? If the devil was demanding that sacrifice, so that who would make that deal that this is a sacrifice, but you know what? After you can come and steal your money, after you can come and steal your son, resurrect him behind the scenes. It's time we wake up. We are the melanated people. It's time we wake up. It's time we wake up to the truth. Please don't forget to subscribe to my channel. We need to hit 1,000 subscribers so I can come live, right? Live is more prolific because I get to ask direct questions. I can't wait to come live. Please help me raise 1,000 subscribers by sharing it to all your loved ones and all people around you. Listen, it's time you wake up. Tomorrow, I'm going to show you cannot use a lamp. Tomorrow, I'm going to show you cannot use a lamp for atonement. They did not use lamps for atonement. Let's study. Have a blessed night. See you tomorrow.